21 masterclasses in new consciousness, new ways of thinking, being and doing for the new you. Pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world. Hello, I'm Shanti and a really warm welcome to today's masterclass, one of 21 masterclasses, a whole series looking at new ways of thinking, being and doing in today's rapidly changing world. My name is Philippa and I'm with you throughout the whole series as together we listen to the experiences from pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world, from all backgrounds and all walks of life, as they share with us their ways of building resilience in these challenging times. Now, one of the defining experiences of this time of the coronavirus has been the fact that many of us have experienced a prolonged period of lockdown with our families. And we're really not used to spending 24/7 in these close-knit situations. And it's thrown up, no doubt, a lot of issues for those who have been through this experience. Not only have we been parenting all day, which maybe we're not used to doing, but also getting involved in educating as well and just sharing a space with these other people. And inevitably, with any intergenerational experience like this, there has to be some kind of agreed consensus around how you're going to do things, what are the rules, what are the ways that you're all going to sign up to make it good for everybody. Another way of saying that is to really look at the values that are underpinning how you as a family operate. So this is our topic for today. We're looking at how to harmonize in the home. Now, all of our speakers throughout this series are students and teachers of the Brahmakumaris World Spiritual University, which is a place of learning. It's a place for learning about meditation, learning about the self. The subject taught is Raja Yoga meditation, which is the yoga of the mind. And there are teaching centres in over 110 countries right around the world and an active presence in even more countries than that. It's an organisation that was founded in India in 1936 through a series of teachings and visions that came through the original founder, whose name was Brahma Baba. And it's very much felt that these teachings are completely geared to this period of time of turbulence, this time of change that we're going through, so very relevant to today. And the founder, Brahma Baba, decided quite early on that it was important that women were kept to the fore, that they had the qualities that naturally to lead at this time. And so as a result of that, the Brahmakumaris has become the largest spiritual organisation of its kind in the world to be led by women. Now, let me introduce you to our guide on today's topic. Diane Tillman has been a teacher and student of the Brahmakumaris for 39 years. She's based at Seal Beach on the coast in California. And Diane has spent her career working as an educational psychologist, both in schools and also in family settings. She also works as a marriage and family therapist. And for many years, Diane has been one of the prime movers in a global values-based educational project called Living Values Education. And over the years, Diane has travelled to more than 30 countries right around the world, running seminars and workshops to help educators and parents really get to grips with what we understand by a values-based approach to education. And as a result of all this work, Diane has produced a series of 15 resource books for parents and educators, looking at the needs and the potential of the different age groups. So there's one for 3 to 7-year-olds, another one for 8 to 14-year-olds, and then another one for young adults. So really spanning all the ages. Diane, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us from your place on the beach in California, which I have to say doesn't sound too much of a hardship. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Philippa. It's just wonderful to be here.
Great. Now,
to be with you, to see you.
Your career, as I said, has combined both educational psychology as well as researching this values-based approach to living and also to learning. And of course, when we look at values, we have intrinsic values, don't we, which you could say are part of our soul qualities like peace and love, which we all have an affinity to. But then we also have acquired values, which are very much based on the culture that you live in and have grown up in. So I wonder what for you is a starting point in terms of understanding values, and also if you could just say what you mean by living values. How do you approach that?
I think a really good starting point when one is thinking about values is to think of someone in your life that was really important to you. And imagine if everyone in the whole world had that value and lived the value. That is, they embodied it. They spoke that way. They were that way in their relationships. They were that way with everyone. And so, for me, a value is something that is innate, that we have naturally. But to have it go from a virtue to a value, it's something that we live and that we allow to guide our life, that we use to make decisions by. So I would ask everyone watching this to think about the values. What two values do you love that you think that if everyone in the world had them and lived them at the same time, that it would change the world? So think about that for a minute. Which two values would you pick? I very often ask this question, and sometimes people say peace and respect, sometimes compassion and authenticity, honesty and selflessness. But whatever the answer is, you're right. Because if we all held just two of your deepest values, which are all universal, then we would be who we are and who we are at our best. And anything that contradicts that would just be gone.
It's very often the case, isn't it, that it takes a crisis, perhaps in our own lives or in the lives of those around us, for us to discover what we're really made of, for us to discover what our values really truly are. And I think this time of the coronavirus, we've had a lot of talk of values in the mainstream media in a way that hasn't been there before. We've been talking about kindness, the way people have been helping each other out, communities have been coming together. There's been talk of altruism, of, random acts of kindness to strangers. And I think we've really come to appreciate the way in which values underpin and hold together the fabric of our own individual lives, and also the fabric of the communities and the countries in which we live. Have you observed in the research that you've done that often it does take a little jolt to get people to really understand and appreciate what their own values mean to them?
I think that when people are in crisis, there's many stories of people that have had near-death experiences, and they see the light and they feel all this love. And at that point in time, people usually make life-altering decisions because they realize how important love is. So, yes, I think sometimes when we come to a crisis that we can be initially distraught, or sometimes some people take it fairly easy, but it is an opportunity. I think having the coronavirus and having the sheltering in place time has been difficult for a lot of people because we have to encounter ourselves. So I think that these stories and these examples of kindness and compassion and reaching out and helping are wonderful. I know that on a sidewalk in Seal Beach, somebody had written, spread kindness, not germs. Or we may be 6 feet apart, but we're all in this together. So a lot of people are doing little things that make a tremendous difference to a lot of people. And I think that when there is crisis, it's an opportunity to really look and see who we want to be. and what we want to take away from this pandemic. I know that the environment is very important to me. You know, I'm loving the clear skies. And in some ways, you know, we don't get to see some of those that are nearest and dearest to us. But in other ways, we get to see them virtually and a much larger community of our friends virtually. So that's been lovely too. So I don't know, I think appreciating so many more people in this society, so many more professions, our grocery workers, our farm workers. So yes, I hope that we all really deepen our values at this time and extend our circle of values. You know, Philippa, one of the things that I have noticed when I talk about values, because sometimes people will say, well, I have really good values. But somehow, when we get raised, somehow we extend those values to our family and to a few others. But very often we aren't taught to extend it to everyone. And so, is it possible that we can start doing that more now? What do you think?
It's going to be very interesting. There's been a lot of talk of the new normal, and I think there's a sense amongst people that we've really learned something so profound during this time of isolation and self-reflection that has changed us at a very deep level. And we don't want to go back to that rush and that busyness where we're just taking care of ourselves and doing what we can for others, but not really thinking about other people's needs. And that there's something about what we've learned from this that people are really wanting to carry forwards into the future. And it would be great if we can look at that in our conversation today and see how we can capture the best of what we have experienced and taken from this and really take it forwards into the future. But I'm keen to hear just a little bit first about your experience of doing these workshops and seminars, because as I said, you've been around 30 or so countries talking to people about values. And we've already said that values are something which not all cultures and societies share equally. And I'm wondering to what extent you found that there were shared common values, and what you have done to help people when they encounter a value system that they don't share, that's not the same as theirs, and how you communicate across that that divide in a way of not seeing something in the same way as my neighbour. How do we restore a sense of well-being when those values aren't necessarily being shared?
Interesting question. When I've traveled, and I've done so many workshops around the world in all regions of the world, and I've loved it. But one of the things I do is that I will ask the participants to reflect on their values and to share about them with others, and to think about the books they love and the scenes they love and 3 favorite moments in their life. Things like this. Because what usually happens when they reflect on things is that they realize that it's values, it's when we live our values that we're happy. But later on in the workshop, I began to start to ask people, if you were 5 years old, what would you like to tell the adults of the world about how you would like to be treated? And then after that, I end up asking everyone in the group to make up a definition of values and tell me about the 6 values that are most important in their life, that they use to guide their life. What I have found around the world is that when you engage in that process, the values are almost identical. What happens is that when people reflect, they go into this space where they're in their both authentic self. they're thinking about their deepest experiences, their most genuine experiences. And so it puts them in touch with the most beautiful part of them. And I remember one principal of a school, and we were engaged in a train-the-trainer process. And so we had, I think, 5 days in this beautiful place in Kenya. And she had a large school, and at the end of the first day she looked at me and she said, "You know, what you're teaching is really very simple. I realized that what you're saying is that when I'm in my love, everything I do is different." She says, "You know what? It will be." So it's a process to get us to be in touch with ourselves in a very real way. And so when in the Living Values education books, we don't tell them how to show a value. For example, we may say to a child when we're doing the lesson on love, so the teacher would say, "I want you all to go home tonight and I want you to do something loving for your family." Well, that's going to be different depending on their socioeconomic status, their culture, many other things. But what they're going to do is going to be beautiful, depending on their age. But again, you're asking them to place themselves in that value and to act from that. So I don't often find a conflict of values. I find that very often people in the world have differences. They're often polarized. And sometimes you may get a young adult in a classroom who is angry and marginalized and hasn't felt valued by the system, doesn't feel connected. And when you ask that, when that child is angry and you're starting your first lesson and you say, "Tell me about peace, who thinks peace is important?" And that young or older teen, that young adult may be angry, and he may say, "I don't think peace is important." So don't accept it at face value. Listen and say, "So you don't think peace is important?" And give respect to that person. You know, we're seeing so much anger in the world, but anger is secondary. It's not a primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion, it's a tertiary emotion, but it's not primary. So if you give respect, they will settle down and start to go into the feeling underneath it, and eventually they will get to their place of respect. So sometimes it isn't what they're voicing, it's how they're feeling. And so many people are not respected by our societies today. I remember once a very, very angry man when I was working as a school psychologist. And I was in a gang area, and he was very large, and he was in a school, and he was screaming at the secretary. And I don't like people to scream at people, so I reached up, because he was very, very big, and I tapped his shoulder to get his attention, and he swung towards me and he said, "Yeah." And I looked at him and I said, "You're really concerned about something?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Mm-hmm." And I said, "Would you like some help?" He goes, "Mm-hmm." I said, "Great, follow me." But I knew the secret. It's not a secret, but a lot of people don't know it. And that is that the anchor is not first. There's always the hurt or the fear, the concern, the feeling unsafe. And I knew that if he was there yelling, it was because he was concerned about his child. So I think we need to see the anger that we're also seeing at this time as fear, and say, "You're really concerned about something, tell me more." And I find that when we have real conversations, we can often look at those deeper things that we care about. And we may not agree on all of it in terms of how we carry it out, but a dialogue with respect, a dialogue with caring is incredible. It's really beautiful. So it changes our relationship.
And this touches on something which you talk quite a lot about in your books, which is this skill of active listening, which in a way is what you've been describing in these situations where you don't take the behaviour at face value, but you go behind the behaviour to understand what's really going on for the person and really truly listen to what they're saying. And it is an interesting exercise to sit down and think, what are my values? Because they become, in a way, like a moral compass, which enable you to make decisions going forwards. And I think, as a society, we're at a place where, we're engaged collectively in that exercise. But of course, we have had the value system of a very materialistic culture where we have been almost entrained to think about the self first and others second. And maybe that is shifting. And we've also had quite a strong emphasis on the values of science and the values of making decisions about people's lives based on that. And of course, you have a background as a scientist as well. But then there's this other part of your life which you've lived in tandem, which is the spiritual life and the life of someone who meditates and spends a lot of time in silence. And I'm wondering how those two value systems rub up or rub alongside each other in your mind. Is there a way for the best of both to now work together and for each to respect where the other is coming from and really make great strides forwards on the basis of both being included?
Yes, we have been a materialistic society. We have been a scientific society. But I think that if we look at our values, then everything we do automatically changes. I love the integration of psychology with spirituality. I think it allows people to be more full of the fuel that they want. Very often people get in trouble when their bucket of love or peace isn't full. But if we look at science, science can be used for incredibly beautiful things. Materialism can be used for some beautiful things. I am hoping that as a result of this time we'll respect our planet more. And so I hope we use our materialism wisely. I'm hoping that we can share it more with others so that everyone has the things that they need. So I think it's using things wisely, and so I don't see that there's a conflict. The only conflict is really when people are materialistic in the way that they need things to prove to themselves that they're okay. So many of our advertisers in the world, they want you to think that you are good if you drink this, drive this, and wear this. But is that true? And are we educating ourselves and each other and our children about that? Are we going to believe people and the things that they say, these advertisers, just because they want to make money from us? Or can we hearken to our values and our respect for the earth and use things consciously? So I see that we can have so many skills and abilities in this world. But when we come from a place that is informed with values, we make different decisions. So how can I use science to create more peace? How can I use it? How can I use it to make more peace, more benefit?
Beautiful.
Does that make sense?
Definitely, definitely. And you're touching there on the values of young people who, as you're saying, are exposed constantly by a value system that's being projected onto them by advertisers and society and media. And I'm wondering how you could help families explore their common approaches, their common values when it comes to how we live together in a family home, given that there are very different ways of seeing things and doing things in today's world. How do you begin to navigate that edge?
You know, parents have a lot of control over what comes into the home, what's on the screen, how young children get to be in front of a screen. We choose with the books we read them. We choose with the songs we play them. We choose with going outdoors with them and letting them play and not scheduling every minute and having family time. So I think there's so many things that we can do where they are valued as a whole person, and they are valued just for who they are. But we get to expose them to the world we want to some extent, depending on circumstances. But even then, our interpretation of circumstances is very, very important. You know, what we say to them about what things mean. For example, during the coronavirus, and they may feel bad about not being able to go outside and not want to wear their mask, but we can explain things in such a way that they understand that wearing the mask is a sign of compassion and caring for others. Look at what you value. Look at your schedule. Do family time. Create family time together. Talk about what you want. Talk about how you want your day to be. Have the kids take responsibility for their schoolwork or what they're doing. But in family time, you think about what you'd like. What are your gifts that you'd like to share with your children? What do you want to remember from coronavirus? So family time can include things like allowing them to cook with you, encouraging them to cook, laughing together, having game night a couple of times a week. You know, it's so important to play with your children. One of my very favorite studies that I read many years ago is they did a study with misbehaving children, and they asked parents to simply play with them 20 minutes 3 times a week. And that was the only intervention. So the parents played with them for 20 minutes 3 times a week. And at the end of 3 weeks, 50% of the negative behaviors had disappeared. That eye-to-eye contact, face-to-face time is important. They just need time to get used to it. So play with them every day. Maybe it's you play with one child, your partner plays with another, maybe an older child plays with another child. So you're all playing one-to-one with someone, you know, and you all get a turn. And so you may rotate sometimes, but they'll get used to playing with each other and to enjoy them. And the rule is the one that's playing with them, they get to really do what that person really wants to do and really have a good time with them. So playtime, listening, games, cooking together, making you get their help, have cleanup together, where you see how fast you can get the house cleaned up. I know it sounds silly, but put on some music, make it fun, be imaginative, go outdoors when you can and play. Listen and be there with your kids, enjoy them, be in your love, be in your peace, enjoy you, take care of you, pray, meditate so you can take care of the kids, and be the joy and the love that you are and want to be.
It is true when you're dealing with children and young people, is they very often learn from who you are as a person. that they see through you if you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not, or there's something different on the outside from what is on the inside, because they'll pick up very quickly, well, you don't do that yourself. I've seen that you in this situation have behaved in this way. And that brings us on to really the values that we apply to ourselves, and the fact that we need to sometimes change and really reevaluate who we are as people. And for you, I am imagining that that is where your spiritual practice has come in and given you support in making those changes in your life. But how do you advise people when it comes to applying what you're talking about to themselves? What have you found really works?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Kids will see what we're doing. They'll do what we do, not do what we say. If what we're doing and we're saying is inconsistent. So you're absolutely right about that. In terms of our own values and strengthening that practice, yes, my spiritual practice has really helped. So pray, meditate, enjoy being present. Take a value, one of the ones you love. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's love, maybe it's compassion, maybe it's kindness, maybe it's courage. But whatever value you choose to focus on, and let's say you pick three that you know that would change the world if everybody lived them. So one of the things you can do is increase your time being present in that value. So enjoy yourself as that being of peace or love or compassion. And when you take a walk and when you're with your kids, let yourself have that play across your mind so you're in that space. Be in that space when you have a conversation. Be in that space when you're cooking, when you're chopping vegetables, when you're playing. Enjoy yourself. Another thing that's very interesting to do is to do a mind map with your kids about this, or just with yourself about this, or with some friends about this. But think about what is the effect of peace on yourself versus the lack of peace. What is the effect on others? What is the effect on the community, on the world? It's really a beautiful way to see what an incredible influence values have. That said, most of us have periods of time when we're not in our values. And I think that sometimes we're not in our values when we're not feeling so well. So, for example, sometimes we get grumpy. One of the things I tell kids is that when we're grumpy, it's because we don't have enough love inside. So grow your love inside. And if you're having a dark period or a down period, then journal. And when you journal, journaling is lovely. But most people only journal one part of themselves, okay? Maybe it's a hurt part. Maybe it's a scared part or an anxious part. So let that voice speak. Don't shut it off or try to suppress it, because it will only get bigger and grow. Lovingly accept it. So when you journal on one side of the piece of paper with that, and on the other side of the piece of paper, journal with your nurturing parental self, or your angelic self, or your whatever you want to call it. But your nurturing self that can be loving with you and accepting. And listen to that part and then love it. It's one of the things that a lot of people do, is that they reject their hurt and their fear. And hence they go into great dependencies. whether it be drugs or abuse or excessive shopping or alcohol or too much chocolate, but too much ice cream. But, if we love ourselves, because that's really what we want, isn't it? And so when we love ourselves and deal with our own pain and accept ourselves, that part can actually heal. And then we're much freer to be in our love. When we're in our love, when we're in our peace, we're automatically secure. And that allows our values to really bloom. Another thing, if you've gone through the 3 moments in your life that were very meaningful, very enriching, very important to you, look at the value you were showing at that moment in time and know that that is your value. So your values give you happiness. So whenever there's a decision to be made that's difficult, just think, what's my value? Okay, I value peace. I'm going to do that. So those are a few things that you can do. You can also dance it and draw it and create art and be creative with it. Make it your own.
It's certainly the case that when you feel really secure in your values, you feel really safe and connected inside. It somehow gives you a framework within which you can live and make your decisions and you can be. And what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that when it comes to looking at harmony in the home, if we learn to look at our own selves and create harmony within ourselves by looking at all those different aspects of our being and try and give a voice to those parts which we maybe sometimes shut away, that will then ripple out and affect those in the family that I'm living with. That will create a stillness for my partner. It will create an energy of harmony for the children and whoever we're sharing our living space with. That we very often try and fix people who are out there rather than look to create within myself the experience that I'm wanting to see in the family, in the home. That harmony in the home has to begin with harmony within myself, and that is where we have to begin. Is that a good reading of what you've been saying?
Yes, it is a good reading of what I've been saying. But if I can, I'd like to share a few ways that people can share that also with their family. I talked a little bit about family time, but one of the things that you can do during family time is to take up values. There is the Living Values education resources that are free on the Living Values site. You could, for example, download the Peace Unit and visualize peace together. You could create a peace tent in the house. You could look at caring for the earth and our oceans and learning about that. So you can bring up topics and create interest and do projects together and create things together so that you're actually discussing values. I've been receiving letters from prisoners lately that are doing living values in prisons in California. And some of them say that they never discussed values before. But another thing you can do in your home is, for example, you could all pick a virtue or a quality or a value to enjoy for that day or for that week. The older kids could research it and look at quotes. The younger kids could draw about it. And during family time, you can share about it. We can teach so much by our way of being and by the things we choose to do.
And it's just creating the habit of having conversations about these things. Like your prisoner was saying, how often do we in our lives have conversations about what are our values and what values are important to us? So that's very inspirational to think that we can do that. And of course, it doesn't just apply to the family, but we can do that in our working relationships, within our office environment. We can do that within our neighbourhoods. This is a conversation that can happen at every level of society, because, as we've been saying, it underpins everything that we do. And we've been seeing how values have been really being expressed during the last few months in this time of coronavirus. So, it's such a worthwhile topic to be exploring. So thank you so much for prompting so much self-inquiry into this whole area. It would be wonderful, Diane, if you could just lead us into a meditation that allows us to maybe come into a place where we feel that connection to our own inner values and really have a tangible experience of that we can then go away and practice, each one of us, in our own meditations. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Take a deep breath. And let yourself be surrounded by the light of peace. Let go as you exhale of any tension. And take in another breath of the light of peace. As you relax all your muscles, you may wish to close your eyes or keep them open. And let that peace play across your mind. With peace, there's a feeling of stillness within. As you relax, reflect on that person who made such a positive difference in your life. What value did he or she have? Imagine an interaction. And imagine what the world would be like if everyone in it held that value. And now please think of the two qualities or values that you think would change the world if everyone lived them. You're naming these because these are your qualities, your values. Fill yourself with its values. Take the first one and imagine going through the day with that value. And as you're in your day, imagine it. Have that second value. So they're together in your mind. And imagine going through your day with both of those. And what would happen if everyone else was walking, talking, being in the world in that way? We're in a special time, a transformative time, a time of change. Each one of us is only one person. But each person has an impact. Each person makes a difference for so many. Enjoy feeling your values. Let them play across your mind. And know that as you're doing this, that you're creating an energy. Perhaps your way of being, perhaps your words, perhaps your energy. But appreciate that in you. And appreciate the myriad of values and qualities in others. See each one as a being who truly wants peace, who truly wants love. Some don't know how to be it. Some don't know how to act from that space, but it's there. And when we're in our values and when we're in our love, we trigger opportunities for others to be in theirs. Not from a position demanding or asking, from a position of being and acceptance and respect. Take another deep breath. Appreciate who you are and your gifts to the world. Another deep breath and surround yourself with the light of love.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was really lovely.
Thank you, Philippa.
It's been such a rich sharing on this whole topic of values and how we apply them in the home to create harmony. I've certainly got so much to go away and think about. So thank you very much indeed for being with us and sharing your wisdom over many years. It's been great.
Thanks so very much, Philippa. It's been a delight to be with you.
And thank you as well to you for joining us from wherever you are. I hope you've been likewise inspired to think about some of these issues that we've talked about today. And let's see where we go as a global community if we can find common values by which we all want to live and make a real difference in the world. So until next time, thank you for being with us. Take good care, keep safe, Om Shanti, and goodbye. "21 Masterclasses in New Consciousness, New Ways of Thinking, Being and Doing for the New You." Pioneering thinkers from countries right around the world.
What happens when you connect with your inner light? Open the door of your heart and mind for the softness of light to enter. Let light illuminate your virtue, your love, peace, and compassion. Be fearless to reveal yourself as you are.
If you're meditating, with eyes closed or eyes open, if we speak different languages, doesn't matter. God can inspire each and every one of us.
Безмолвие, когда я могу остаться наедине с собою, в этом внутреннем пространстве, где есть только я.
And then from that space of silence, come back into action, carrying the inequalities of the soul into whatever I do.
It's just a power within you. It's just a power that is invisible.
अनकंडीशनल लव तो होता है, रीजन नहीं होता. अनकंडीशनल हैप्पीनेस कि कोई रीजन ना हो और आप खुश हो, वो सिर्फ भगवान से ही मिल सकता है.
For me, meditation is an opportunity to pause, to stand still and connect with the one above.
Né? Você gosta de meditar também, Luna?
Eu gosto de meditar desde bebê, na barriga da minha mãe.
Let's be angels for others.